live in the world. Understand that people are complex and strong-willed when it comes to what they believe, but it still boggles my mind. Within Wabash itself, there are about 90 churches, and that's just Wabash, not the county. And that's a lot. When you gain an even bigger and greater and better, higher bird's eye view of the church, capital C, you see even greater diversity and difference. Jesus, through none of his own doing, has polarized people, has pit God's children against each other. And it's so interesting that we are living into that kind of reality today, because Jesus wanted none of that. He sought to bring every single person to him, to unite a people despite their differences. But instead, we have divided ourselves against each other, and divided we stand. And we know how that's going for us. We live amongst a people who hold strong beliefs about who they think Jesus was and is. And those beliefs, some of them are so different from each other. For some, Jesus would want more opportunities for those in need of food and other basic necessities to receive assistance, while others tend to believe that Jesus would want people to take care of themselves. For some, God is the force behind all the tragedies that exist in the world, while others believe that God has no direct hand in that, in orchestrating any of that. It's just life. We spend a lot of energy and time pondering what would Jesus do in regards to political and societal issues that Jesus himself never talked about or never dealt with. And let's be honest, sometimes, a lot of the times, it's gotten to the point of ugliness. And we have no one to blame but ourselves for that, because we have caused it. We are responsible. That kind of behavior, mentality has influenced our views and expectations of Christ and the character of God. It's truly impossible to have an unbiased opinion about anything, any topic in the world, and that rings true for God. As a people, we try to understand this God who created the universe and every single living creature in it. We try to understand who God is and who this Jesus is, who speaks this message more clearly than anyone else who ever walked on the earth and ever will. And if we are to be faithful, we should try to know and comprehend God. But where we get it wrong is when we try to tightly define God. And if we're not careful, who we perceive God and Jesus to be looks an awful lot like us. There's a great quote by Anne Lamott in her book, Bird by Bird, and it's this: if you can safely assume that you created God in your own image, when it turns out that God hates all the same people you do. As human beings, we like to put people, objects, ideas in a nice little contained box. You're either Republican or Democrat, conservative, liberal, Protestant, Catholic, the list goes on and on, as we know. And it seems that it's easier for us to live and breathe in a world filled with black and white, instead of seeing the beauty and value in the gray that exists between the black and the white. When we put labels on and categorize anything, especially people, it's our way of establishing and meeting our own expectations. Because we know what a Republican looks like. And does, or so we think, because they're all the same. Because we know what a poor person looks like, or does, or so we think, because they're all the same. But I'm afraid that kind of behavior has forced us into a corner that's kind of hard to get out of. And that's where John got it wrong when it came to Jesus being the Messiah. John expects the Messiah certain way. And when Jesus did not meet his expectations, John questioned Jesus being the Messiah. But what John should have done was question his own expectations of how Jesus as the Messiah ought to act. Now, Jesus wasn't the issue. John was the issue. I wonder how many times in our lives have we been like John, and how we have tried to limit God and God's ability to move in the world. I think our world, the church, and our lives would be so much better if we didn't try to force our own expectations on God and Jesus. Instead, we trust in the fact that God is a driving, living, and breathing force in the world today. I think our world, the church, and our lives would be so much better if we weren't so focused on having the right beliefs. Instead, we were more interested in being a people of action, of holy action. We tend to spend too much time and energy concerned about being right, and as a result, we fail to mimic what Jesus did in his life. The lesson learned, as we look at John in our scripture, let's put aside our expectations, our assumptions, our beliefs, so that we can create more space in the world for God to accomplish amazing acts of mission and ministry around us and with us as partners along the journey. Like John, let's help to prepare a people, a community for the coming of the Lord, the Messiah. And the whole church said,